Welcome, everyone. I'm here today with my friend Sonia. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Carla Titus. I'm the founder and CEO of Wealth and Worth Within. We're a fractional CFO firm providing consulting and advisory services to growing businesses who want more profit, more cash in the bank, and pay themselves well as the owner of the business to create personal wealth. And today I have a very exciting conversation with Sonia around tax savings. And I know before you tune out, like this is an important conversation around what are the right strategies to save on tax and how do we think about tax planning and proactively managing the tax bill so that you can keep more money in your pocket the right way and beware of some of the TikTok advice and things that are going out around, and we're going to debunk some of that. So I want you to stay with us to cover all those juicy topics that I'm sure you have questions about as a business owner. So Sonia, will you introduce yourself to our audience today?
Yes, thank you so much for having me on, Carla. I am so excited. I am Sonia. I am a first gen Latinx tax professional and the founder of Castellan Tax Services. I help BIPOC entrepreneurs reduce their tax burdens through personalized tax strategies so that they can pay less to the tax man legally, of course, and keep
Always.
more money in their pockets.
Awesome. And we had all of that really good insights that we're going to share today to help business owners keep more in their pocket, like you said, legally, because it's important that we obey by the rules. And, I always say if you're paying tax, you're probably making profit, which is actually the intention of having a business. So if you're not doing that today and you feel like your tax bill is a burden, we're going to show you how that can become actually empowering to know not only do you have the money to pay you for your taxes because you plan for it, but also you're just paying your fair share and not leaving money on the table, which is our intention. And also how to get away from some of the bad advice that's out there. There's just not serving anyone. So what I wanted to start with is the conversation we had earlier around before we started recording. How are you going to get tax savings and breaks if you're already at a loss? And I think this was such a great, starting point for us to have this discussion, because I think a lot of people are on that boat. They're like, worry about saving on tax, doing all the strategies, doing all the things that TikTok's like you should do, but they're not even making money. So like, let's start there. Like, should tax strategy be for a business that's not currently profitable?
So tax strategy is definitely helpful, and with planning the right way can definitely help business owners even if you're not making a profit. And the reason is with that we analyze your situation. We're just looking to see where you're pacing at in terms on the business, and where are your stream of incomes coming in, how are your expenses being categorized, and are they even beneficial, and are they even helping you bring back a return on investments? Because the problem is that a lot of people assume that when you start a business, like, you can write off as much as you can. But the problem is with that, like, why are you in the business to spend money when the initial side of you starting a business was to make money so that you can reach your financial goals? And this is why I always tell people you're in the business to make money, not bleed. So this is why I always tell people that if you're consistently seeing a loss on the business, this is where you will need to work with a professional like Carla and myself, who can really help you and guide you in the right direction. We can look to see what is going on in the business and how can we go about with eliminating some of the expenses that may not be even ordinary business expenses. Sometimes they're I've seen a lot of crazy things, you guys. I've seen a lot of expenses that do not make sense on the business side. And sometimes, with those expenses being written off on the books, could potentially lead to an audit with the IRS, where they can go and start questioning your expenses and will, in fact, go and determine that if these business expenses are not actually ordinary business expenses, they will take that deduction away from you and classify those as personal uses instead, which can result in a higher tax bill.
Which is not the intention, right? I think what you said made so much sense that we're in business to make a profit. That's the definition of a business. After, I believe, 2 or 3 years, the IRS, if you're not making profit and you're at a loss, considers you a hobby and no longer allows you to write off expenses. So this is to be taken serious. This is advice that we're giving you based on IRS guidelines and definitions of what a business is and does, is in business with the intention of making a profit and making money. That's why you get to write things off as an advantage to you as the business owner for, like what Sonia said, ordinary and necessary business expenses. And this is a key, because what I see often is one business owner talks to another business owner in a completely different industry, unrelated to the work that we do. And they say, well, I write off XYZ. I can write off my car, and I can write off my office space, and I can write off my cell phone bill. And then maybe for that other business, some of those other expenses like clothing or things like that are not a write off to that type of business, because the type of work that they do does not include this ordinary and necessary expense in order to make money in that particular type of business. So when you're talking to your friends and they're saying, I'm writing off all the things, one, what is your risk tolerance? Two, have you talked to your accountant about your personal situation? And then three, make sure you're comparing the right industry and the right type of business, because a lot of things can be different depending on your personal situation and the type of industry or business that you're running. So don't just take advice and go do the same thing your friend is doing just because they said so, because their accountant, is okay with that and your accountant might not be. And at the end of the day, you're signing off on your tax return. So it's important that you validate that every expense was necessary and ordinary to run the business. And of course, we want you to get all the deductions. We want you to get all the return on investment to benefit your business and grow it over time to make more profit. But that is not possible if you're not being intentional about where you're spending your money and what you're choosing to spend money on to get that, growth in the business or that profit that you're seeking. So
Mhm.
just make sure you're taking advice from the right people and that is applicable to your situation, inclusive of your personal side, because a lot of things also have to do with what's going on the personal side of your return, not just the business side. So I think want to make sure you're working with an accountant that understands all of it comprehensively, can give you good guidance. Now, you mentioned something about categorizing transactions, and I think this goes back to the core of why bookkeeping is
Mhm.
such an important aspect of getting those tax savings, right? Everything that we categorize on the profit and loss statement and balance sheet at the end of the day flows through your tax return. So tell me about what you're looking for in clean accounting and bookkeeping and record keeping that enables a good tax saving strategy for a business owner.
Well, I always tell people that when I need to review your and get a learning of your business situation, I look at the financial records. Now, if they are messy, obviously you're risking to get audited by the IRS, right? But you're also risking the fact that you are relying on bad data because of the messy financials that you have. And so this is why I always tell people, if your books are not reconciled and expenses are miscategorized, holy crap, you could be overpaying or even missing out on deductions. And this is why having clean books is so important, because it provides an accurate financial picture of your business. And with that, right, it's also going to help with everything else when it comes to tax planning, even to securing business funding, which is why having those books cleaned up as soon as you can, and with a like, it has to be well polished, because I have seen so many mistakes that I had to call it out in front of them. And believe it or not, some business owners, they have a lot on their plate, but when they actually take a moment to review their numbers, they are taken back because they thought they were hitting a certain figure and they realized they are not actually. So I had a client not too long ago who thought that she was making six figures. And when I reviewed and cleaned up her books, we realized that her actual profit was a lot lower than what she even had anticipated. And because previously she had thought she was making a certain amount, she reported those amount on the tax return, which resulted her into pay a higher tax bill. And this is why it's really important that business owners pay attention to their finances. It's take the time to really go in and with a fine comb tooth, like scrub as much as you can. And if you do not have the time, this is where you should hire an experienced bookkeeper, especially someone who's already well versed on the tax side, because they know what exactly needs to be on the Schedule C or on the S Corp tax return.
Yeah, it's so important to not leave this to only tax time or end of year when you're frantically trying to get all your records together for the last 12 months. It just puts you in a very precarious position to have to go back and think about what were those transactions back in January at the beginning of the year, like last year. Nobody remembers what we had for lunch yesterday, let alone January 15th of last year that you spent $200 on something, right? So it's important that you do your monthly bookkeeping. And if you're not doing it, and you're not getting to it, because I think everybody has the best intention, right? But then business happens and life happens and things pile up. And then the last thing you do or want to do is your money monthly date with yourself to look at your books and do your record keeping. So if you're not going to keep up with it, you're probably better off outsourcing that and just reviewing the final result that a good bookkeeper can provide in a report. And if you're not financially there to outsource it, yeah, that's okay, as long as you're maintaining it yourself. But I see often there's such great intention to do it, and at the end of the day, the execution fails. And this is where we get behind. We're 2, 3 months behind. Now we have to catch up. It's more expensive. Nobody wants to do it. We have to answer questions we don't even know the answer to anymore because we forgot. Like, this is where we want to be proactive with managing our numbers and just spending 15, 30 minutes a month just reviewing the numbers, doing the work necessary to ensure that this is staying accurate. Because again, you want all those deductions, you want all the tax benefits, but you're not going to get it if you don't know what your profit is. And also on the other side of it is not overpaying on your profit, because if you categorize everything right, you would not have a bigger tax bill than necessary. And this should not be found out at tax time when we have deadlines we're filing against and rushing against the clock. We should be doing this proactively throughout the year. So if this year you did not get ahead, make it a priority for this year going forward to stay ahead and make sure you're properly proactively managing that. So that leads me to that, proactive approach to tax managing and then making the tax moves, that everybody talks about. But what they don't talk about every time on those videos is, how do you afford to make those tax moves? Because there is a cash flow implication to any of the tax changes or advantages you want to do in your business. And I yet to see a video that says, by the way, when you do the Augusta rule or when you buy the car at the beginning of the year, this is what happens next. And I think we're doing a disservice to every business owner out there that does not understand what it costs to implement some of the strategies. And the potential risk for audit that you brought up is also very real, because IRS looks for those things, by the way. They see patterns and trends, and then they might call something out. And an audit is no fun. I have a friend who has gone through it, and trust me, you do not want to go through that, because once they find one discrepancy, then they open it up to look at everything. And if you're not prepared with good records and bookkeeping and accounting of everything and defending yourself in that way, it's really hard. But in any case, going back to proactively managing and doing the right tax moves, what advice do you have for business owners on taking advantage of those, unique tax moves that they can make while still maintaining good cash flow in their business?
This is a good question. So I always tell people, please do not wait until tax season to think about taxes, because I'm sorry, you're already too late. The year has already passed. We're in a new year, which is why I always encourage proactive tax planning, because it means that you're actually looking at now and ahead. You're also now making the time to make strategic moves during the year. And we're also going to be looking for legal ways to reduce your tax bill before December 31st. And this is where I even tell people it can be as simple as just, again, tracking your deduction, making sure those are categorized correctly, adjusting your estimated payments. Maybe something had come about that helped reduce your tax burden, where now you don't have to make a certain payment amount by a certain time. It could have been a lot lower because something else helped you out. And also an opportunity for optimizing payroll if we see that you made really good income on the business side, where we might as well go ahead and increase the salary so that you can also continue to write that off as a wage, right? And the thing I also see as well, and actually this happened the last few weeks too, that a lot of business owners, right?
It's that
They
time of year.
they already come to me shocked, right? Shocked that they have a 20, 30, $40,000 tax bill because they didn't plan ahead. And I'm
Mhm.
telling you, a little strategy can come a long way because it can help save you thousands. And I do also want to mention as well, because I know a lot of people are probably thinking to themselves, like, well, by reducing my tax bill, I can just buy and buy expenses or purchase expenses to help reduce this burden. But the problem is that here's the thing. not every tax deduction makes financial sense, okay?
Thank you.
And a lot of business owners need to understand that when you're spending money to save on taxes, you're really not, because for example, if you're spending, let's say, $10,000 just to save $3,000 on a tax break, you're still at a $7,000 loss. So I always tell people, like, when it comes to smart tax move, you want to consider it as what are your options to maximize your deductions without the unnecessary expenses, like the spending, I
Yes.
mean. Because I always tell everyone, my clients especially, like, not every purchase is necessary. So is it really worth it to just write that off? Like, and that's like one of the biggest mistakes that I have seen, is that people are spending money just to write it off. But I will also tell you this, that when it comes to a deduction, it's only lowering your taxable income, okay? It doesn't give you back the money that you pay on those expenses, okay? You
Exactly.
still lose money if the expense isn't necessary for your business. And I'm sorry that you
Mhm.
guys have to hear this out, because it frustrates me when I see mistakes like this. But I know that this is where we have to educate them, right? Um,
Mhm.
I do want to. This is so interesting. I remember this has just been a few months ago. A client, he really wanted to buy this Tesla. I don't know what's with Tesla, you guys. What is? I don't see the hype, but to each their own, right? It was around December. We were finalizing his planning, and he said, "Well, I was thinking of purchasing a car, and my friend told me to look into a Tesla." And I'm like, "Why do you want a Tesla?" Well, because I'm in need for a new car, and also I heard that that's a tax break as well. And I'm like, okay, well, I will tell you this right now. I already did his bookkeeping, and I did the math, and I basically said, you don't even have enough cash flow right now to purchase a new vehicle. So I said, listen, if you want to reduce your tax burden, there's other ways, but I will tell you that purchasing a Tesla is not the right option right now at this time. So what I did do for him, what I did suggest, is that let's look into other things that doesn't require the high unnecessary spending. And this is why I did consider having him contribute just a small amount to a traditional IRA,
Mhm.
and then also looking to see some of the expenses. Usually these are like subscriptions, or in this case he was always renewing his marketing uh contract with this agency. And I said, would you consider prepaying them now versus the following year, so that you can have this as a write-off on your books? And I also said, why don't we also bump up your pay, because he's an S corp, you guys. And I said, you know,
Great way to
I,
spend the money.
it's a perfect. I To me, based on his situation, this is just not for everybody, but based on his situation, I was trying to give him a little bit of everything. I was trying to
Mhm.
have him invest for his future. I was also
Mhm.
looking to see what expenses that he can pay now versus the following year in advance, and then also paying himself again through salary from his business. So obviously, we had to make sure that his salary and his distribution ratio was in
Mhm.
the correct way, because obviously we can't have him underpaying. We also want to make sure that he's also staying in compliance when it comes to reasonable compensation as well. So I was giving him a bit of tax savings without straining his cash flow, you guys. And that is why business owners need to have a professional like myself to help them and think forward and for their future instead of the now.
Yeah, I love that so much because that's exactly where I was going to. Is the business needs to spend money on necessary items, not just like the random $10,000 thing to save the $3,000. No, you're actually wasting $7,000 on something that maybe you didn't need or want to, or your business needed. Maybe something you wanted, which is fine. Like there's some of that spending too, as long as it aligns with like the business needs. But just keep in mind, we should not be spending money for the sake of saving taxes. That you're not going to get the return on that unless it's something you were going to spend money on anyways, and then you happen to pull it into the year. Or like, for example, I have clients that maybe want to buy laptops next year, and I say, let's just buy them in December because we know we're going to need them for the next 4 hires, and we can get that expense added in December because we have the cash flow, we plan properly, and we know we're going to need them and utilize them in the following year for hiring purposes. So that aligns with the business needs. It's just a timing component that we're managing on purpose to help out for this profit year. Now, keep in mind, next year, you're going to have more profit because your laptops are not going to be bought next year. So, like, you got to figure out your trade offs and be very intentional about managing this. So, I think I love that conversation around how do we get proactive? How do we make the right decisions for the business from the right lens? And that's where professionals like us come in to either do the bookkeeping and recommend things from that perspective, to do the CFO financial planning for projections and understanding what is your profit going to look like, so we can feed that into an accountant like yourself, Sonia, and have you tell the client what are the estimated payments. Should we make changes on payroll? Should we make changes on the estimated payments to make sure we don't get behind? Because guess what? The tax bill is not a surprise. We can kind of know roughly what the tax bill will be. And so if you're properly planning and paying quarterly, you should not be surprised with a high tax bill at the end of the year, unless something very different happened on the personal side that maybe prompted that. But your accountant will catch that if you're doing tax planning with them ahead of time. So I think of taxes as something we should proactively be managing throughout the year to find one opportunities we can invest money in or save money on doing certain tax moves that make sense for the business. And then two, so the owner has some benefit coming out of their business because they're doing better financially, either you're S corp or not. You taking more money home, which at the end of the day can really help, the personal side of things. And then also balancing that with the overall tax bill that you might get. Again, we all should pay taxes. I think that that is just something that's a given, and that how we legally minimize it is definitely what we're here for. We only want to pay our fair share. We want to make sure we're working with the right accountants that can help us through that and give us good advice. So, just to kind of recap on our conversation, Sonia, today, I think we said step one is we got to make profit. Like that, we're in business to make money, right? So that should be our goal. Now, if you're not there yet, make sure you reach out because we're happy to help you get back to making profit if that's not something that you're currently experiencing in your business. Because a lot of businesses do struggle. They go through seasons, things happen. Maybe they're just getting up and running, and that's tough, the first few years. But there's definitely a way to plan to proactively get back to profit. So make sure you reach out. The next piece is paying yourself and taking money for your future retirement and anything that you need as an owner to make sure that you are taken care for by your business, because you should expect a paycheck and you should expect some benefits out of your business, not just profit, and then potentially some draws on top of that. And then third comes tax strategy, right? That's where Sonia and her team shine on providing you the support on tax planning and proactive management of that side of it. If you're concerned about your tax bill being too high and you think you're leaving money on the table and opportunities, that's where you want to reach out to Sonia to get some support and get your proactive business tax planning in place before the end of the year so you can manage it during the year. And then we can help you with projections and kind of mapping out what your financial plan needs to look like for the business so that Sonia can do a great job estimating what your tax bill might be and help you save on that. So Sonia, tell people where they can find you if they want to work with you or need want to have more information about your services.
Oh, yes. So if you're a business owner who is looking or ready to work with a tax strategist like myself, then you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. That is where I share tax tips and business financial strategies as well. And you can also visit my websites where you can get additional resources. I am working on updating the blog section, but in the meantime, you can also book a consultation with me as well, so that I can learn more about your situation and see if I'm able to help you out, and then we can just take it off from there. And I also want to mention too that now is the perfect time to take back control of your tax situation, okay? Because the sooner that you start learning about money, taxes, and wealth and tax building strategies, the better you'll be off. Like, I swear, your financial future is going to thank you so much.
That's true. It can be a better time to go shop around for the support you need. Make sure you have the right tax pro on your corners, advising you and proactively helping you manage this. And if that's not happening right now, that's okay. Go find the right person for you that can help you on this business journey. We're here to support you to be successful and meet all your goals. If you're looking for a fractional CFO to help out or outsource your bookkeeping support, make sure you reach out to us on our website at wealthworthwithin.com. There's that let's get started to book a consultation call. We would love to know more about your needs and how we might be able to support them. If you're not ready to hire us but want to follow along with some educational content to get better at this kind of things, then make sure you sign up for our newsletter at wealthworthwithin.com. And there's a pop-up that comes in to sign up for our twice a month newsletter where we share a lot of what's going on with clients, themes and conversations we're having that might help your business become more profitable and help you manage that better. And then if nothing else, follow us on social media. We're very active on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram at Wealth Worth Within. Thank you so much, Sonia, for being here today to share all that knowledge. I hope people reach out and get the support that they need, especially, it's top of mind right now. So it's a great time to be talking about taxes, and really any time of year, we should be thinking about taxes and just proactively manage that. So thank you so much for sharing your knowledge.
Thank you, Carla, for having me on. I appreciate it.
Have a good day. Thanks, everyone.